I want to say a few things about hybrids, hybrids, hybrids. I'm not talking about plants. Most people think of hybrid corn or some kind of genetically modified growing things. I've been doing visual things for a good number of years. Things like paintings, drawings, prints, photos. Right now I'm working on a video, which is, from my point of view, a very important medium of visual art. It can be, not necessarily, but it can be. Sometime about 20 years ago, I started to make things that were not strictly in any one specific category of the visual arts. I mean, I was trained in traditions that you make a painting, or you make a drawing, or you're doing a print, an etching, a lithograph, maybe you're doing a woodcut. There are all these different kinds of visual things to make that might come into a category of artwork. But somewhere around 20 years ago, I started to make things that were kind of like an amalgam of different forms of artwork. You know, it wasn't strictly painting, it wasn't strictly drawing, it wasn't strictly printing. It was, things were put together in ways that the result could be something that one particular medium would not suffice to get the message across, what I was trying to say. So what I'm going to do here, very simply, is show a number of these hybrids that I've made over the years, and I'll say some things about them as we look at them. Hang on. We are looking at several of the hybrids. I'll try to come in and get a little closer. We see two of them right here in a corner. This one over here was very recent. This one over here was even more recent. And we'll go in a little bit closer to get a look at this one. In particular, maybe we'll focus in on these guys, these amorphic shapes, because they give the name to the whole thing, amorph. I was spraying this stuff that comes out of a can, trying to fill up some holes that needed to be filled up. And these things were formed accidentally. And I put them on this thing that I was working on. And they become part of a composition. The round circular things were made with printing. The squares were made with paint. The little frieze up there at the top was done with spraying through a stencil. And we move over here to this one. This guy here, you can see the original form of these things, what they were like. These have none of the gray paint on. Now this one here is very much an abstract thing in the background. Abstract is the wrong name for it. And these forms are not at all figurative in the sense of trying to figure any kind of or present any forms in the real world. They're totally amorphic shapes developed out of the course of anything other than the way natural forces form them. Over in this corner, we see two more objects. One is simply a painting. The other one is what I call a hybrid. I call this one Sam. Sam is not just a hybrid. Sam also functions at the level of what you might call the aesthetics of utility. Sam is not just a thing that hangs on a wall. he's also a thing you can hang things on. He's a coat and hat hanger. I'm getting a bit of unnecessary flare there. Sam actually started out as a woodcut of my great-great-granddad, and unfortunately turned out very poorly. But I just put plexiglass over it and fastened it on to this this bit of plywood, which I surfaced with spackling, and when it was still wet, I imprinted the letters SAM in it, and also a woodcut. I also put that little guy on there, which is something from a little television that I had that I thought was a nice touch. And these things are rather simple. Now we're looking at this one, this particular piece, which I would call hybrid. It also deals with the aesthetics of utility in that it's not just something that hangs on a wall. It's an incense burner. As you get closer, you see there's a stick of incense in there. There are many things I could say about this, but they would probably be rather boring. It's made up out of some old wood blocks that I had used for printing, plus some masonite that I painted on, plus some circuitry, and a little brass vase that I had nothing to do with, and a thing that was once upon a time a Bunsen burner. And the results of putting it together came out as one of the hybrids. And it's interesting to see how many things can come together to add up to more than the sum of their parts. This particular hybrid might be thought of, perhaps it is. I know kids have said that about it. It's actually two different hybrids. You have one that's on top, composed of what was originally a painting, and onto that painting was put a three-dimensional bit of the spray foam stuff that I've worked with, and also some tape from a cassette tape, using it as hair. The bottom one here is another experiment working with attempts to try different things. There's painting there, there's circuitry, 1/4-inch mesh, worked into a bed of spackling on top of plywood. And as the light shifts, we move on. That was it for the first one on the hybrids. I realize it is a bit on the jumpy side. What we're working here with is a one-man band operation, with one hand holding the light and the other hand holding the camera. And things do get a bit mobile at times. As time goes on, hopefully we'll get that straightened out. But there will be another one, maybe several more. We get to look at these putting together of various forms of stuff to come up with what I call the hybrids. Hang on.